Monad Studios is easily the most influential development group on all of Roblox. In fact, they also made arguably the most important and influential game on all of Roblox. No, not you, deepwoken. You, Rogue Lineage. And deepwoken too, I guess, but we'll cover that later. In today's video, I want to talk about why Monad Studios is one of, if not the most influential and important Roblox development group on the platform. Before we get into it, new song cover dropping soon for my YouTube members, so buy a YouTube membership at any tier, even the lowest, you can hear my monthly song covers. And check me out at twitch.tv/Reaconteur, where I'll be live 20 minutes after this video, and my face reveal drops this Saturday on Raycon Live. But I would like to preface this by saying my face will only be for the live channel and Twitch. I will not be showing it very often here, because if I'm being completely honest, I enjoy those videos more, and I want it to be something special over there. Now let's get straight into it. Starting with Rogue Lineage, it was their first mainstream Roblox game. While Rogue Lineage is a direct prequel to Tales from the Valley in lore, it is a direct sequel as far as release time goes. However, that game was much smaller in comparison. Tales from the Valley was basically a predecessor to Rogue Lineage, and Rogue Lineage was the first game from Monad Studios that would truly bring them anywhere near the mainstream, and its success is the direct reason for why deepwoken exists today. Rogue Lineage came out with an all-new, entirely unique combat system never seen before. Along with that, Rogue Lineage is also responsible both directly and indirectly for the practices commonly used in Roblox closed community games today. That's probably a bad thing, but I'm sure people who are in CC games love it. With its permanent death and character loss mechanics, along with how spec heavy this game was with its developers and staff, along with the rampant levels of gatekeeping going on in this game's community, from trainer NPC locations, which were even moved when their locations would get leaked, all the way to gatekeeping things as small as armor dye colors. No, I'm not joking, people would gatekeep armor dye colors. Basically, every practice and behavior you hate from Roblox CC game communities like OG Type Soul and hundreds of others can be at least somewhat attributed to Rogue Lineage, making people think that that was acceptable. Other people blame Snake World. I hate Snake World, but that's besides the point, and games like Shinobi Life and NO2, but I personally think Rogue Lineage popularized it way more. Anyway, Rogue Lineage's unique combat system was huge. To this day, the game still has 1,000 or more players on average, even without updates, because people just grew to love the game that much. Reaconteur and Archmage truly did outdo themselves to a certain extent. When it came to fun combat and mechanics in Rogue Lineage, there were a lot of them. Too bad for every bit of fun, there was so much more that wasn't fun. Rogue Lineage made developers more willing to experiment with permanent death and unique combat systems rather than the old base combat or just full stun combat anime games like ABA, which coincidentally was actually pretty new when Rogue Lineage first came out in May of 2019, but I personally don't believe that ABA really influenced much because all of the ideas taken from ABA were taken from other games. ABA's combat isn't particularly unique, and literally everything in that game is ripped from a different source of media, so it's not that impressive. Rogue Lineage, though, was impressive because it was fully unique and there was nothing like it on the platform at the time. Although the beta was previously in closed community access in, I believe, 2018, regardless, Rogue Lineage had many problems. The original progression required over 60 player kills at one point, in a game where you had 3 lives. It might have even required 120 before that. I've been playing since release, but I actually do not remember. But either way, they expect you to kill 60 players in a game where you had 3 lives. That's insane. They expect you to kill 60 people without dying 3 times? Super realistic, but good thing scrooms exist. They also had super high class requirements for experience. The game didn't have inventory saving until like 2020, which was really bad. Phoenix Feather was an old artifact that got removed that made it so you could charge mana, and charging mana would just heal your full health bar in 4-ish seconds as long as you had hunger. Artifacts used to have decimal point rarities, Fisherin. In fact, the entire RNG race system is some bullshit. Mages, even after all the nerfs, remain the easiest thing to play ever and managed to both be unfun to play against and boring and uninteractive to play, especially with the Philosopher's Stone artifact, which takes the tiny bit of memory and skill that you have to use to play Mage and just removes it. Mage is genuinely so boring. Macro combos take the skill and timing out of the game. Exploiters and black marketers are super common and ruin the experience for legit players. The game's been abandoned and left to one developer who doesn't work on it enough for consistent or good updates. You get the point. The game is fucked now, and then in different ways. But still, it is and always will be a great game. Although, yeah, there used to be like 5 different ways to infinite combo people without even getting a class. Sorry, this game is trash, but I love it. And when the developers Reaconteur and Archmage realized their game was trash, they truly applied everything they learned about game design into their next project, being deepwoken. And oh my god, deepwoken improved on basically every category except for 2. Progression satisfaction and fun. one being subjective and one being a direct statement from Reaconteur that I personally found. I personally find Rogue Lineage more fun than deepwoken. The game is faster paced, the combos are more satisfying, the movement feels quicker. In my opinion, the sound design is actually better too. Many prefer deepwoken, but that's just opinionated. However, I actually spoke with Reaconteur about his thoughts on deepwoken, and his biggest problem with it was the lack of significant progress gain, if that makes sense. In deepwoken, there is no significant jump in power. Each power level doesn't feel different from the last. Power 1 and 2 feel the same, power 19 and 20 feel pretty much the same. Bells were supposed to supplement that feeling of that major power boost, but bells now are pretty underwhelming and also somewhat irrelevant when a majority of the community plays Chime of Conflict, which has bells disabled. And most bells are utility based, not really making you feel exceptionally powerful. In comparison to Rogue Lineage, where you get 2 big boosts in power from base to super class, and then from super to ultra class, and then potentially an extra boost of power when you get stuff like god spells, rare spells, and artifacts. You will feel stronger and more capable as soon as you hit those goals. However, despite these 2 shortcomings, deepwoken did improve on balancing, combat longevity and pacing, map design, lore and world building, and it improved on all of these exponentially in the years leading up to deepwoken's release from Rogue Lineage. And while Rogue Lineage inspired games like Roblox, which many of you may know, deepwoken has inspired an entire new genre of Roblox parry-based slop. Joking, there are some good games, but for reference, without deepwoken, we would have never gotten Type Soul, VV Ultimatum, Sorcery, that exit scam piece of trash if you like it, Ghoulery, Pilgrimed, which actually might be Rogue Lineage, but regardless, it is all the same development team. Even Roblox trends among older users, ranging from 13 to 20, follow Monad Studios. When parry-based anime games became popular and trending, it was a direct result of deepwoken's existence. When CC games became abusive, it was an indirect result from Rogue Lineage, which directly inspired Type Soul's closed community behavior and systems, and then Type Soul was also directly inspired by deepwoken with its parry-based mechanics, and indirectly inspired by Rogue Lineage, and then it went on to inspire other games. And Monad has consistently had game entries in the Bloxy Awards, comparable levels to that of Do Big Studios. You know, that slop group I made an entire video on because their old COO was black marketing? Fuck those guys, but that's besides the point. But the fact that they rake in millions and own over 300 games on the platform, and their accolades are comparable to that of Monad Studios, despite only having 2.5 major game releases if we count Cursed Gear, is a huge accomplishment for Monad Studios, and I think it's just because Monad Studios is that good. They only have 2 major games. They're having 1 game currently in development that's not even out yet, really. It had like a little public playtest a while ago, but it's undergoing some major changes before that re-release for Cursed Gear. But Rogue Lineage was huge for the time, because Rogue Lineage did average maybe, 10,000 players at its all-time peak, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to today, but Roblox's player base was also much smaller back then, and the game was also much harder and more niche than deepwoken is today. Deepwoken today is doing it averages around 6,000 to 8,000 players. In its peak average, it would go to around 20,000, and its all-time peaks around like Layer 2 were close to 60,000, almost 70,000. And yes, those are big numbers, but you might be thinking, that doesn't compare to all these other games like Grow a Garden, which has millions of players, but you gotta remember, these are paid games. Most of the people on Roblox aren't spending Robux to pay games because they don't want to, or they can't because they're little kids and their parents won't let them. The point being, the fact that a paid game can pull players like this is insane, because Roblox is a platform that really does not incentivize paid games. And along with that, Monad Studios is one of the only game studios on Roblox making good and original content. Right now, 99% of Roblox can be put into one of the following categories: mass genre games like tower defenses, simulators, tycoons, obbies, etc. Anime-based RPGs, which are games like Sorcery and all of those sort of games. And then games that are too old to be alive anymore. Lots of the good original games that you might remember from like 2016 and older come from this category. But they don't live anymore because the games are too old and don't get updated. Rogue Lineage and deepwoken aren't any of these. I guess they're kinda anime-based RPGs, but when I say that, I mean games that outright rip animes for their own games. Deepwoken and Rogue Lineage are at least original in most of their core ideas. Even if Rogue Lineage classes and deepwoken's spells are like 80% inspired by other sources of media, the game's entire identities are their own, rather than another intellectual property like VV Ultimatum or Type Soul being Bleach games. Deepwoken is just deepwoken, and that, in my opinion, is what makes Monad Studios so special. Along with that, I've never seen a Roblox group be able to pull longevity like these developers can. You might be talking about about how, oh, well, deepwoken only has longevity because of weekly updates. But look at Rogue Lineage. That game still pulls 1,000 players, and it's 8 years old at this point, which is insane because Type Soul is a free game, has peaked over 140,000 players, and that game has dropped to 0 players on multiple occasions after just months of no updates. But Rogue Lineage can keep a steady 1,000 as a paid game in 2026 with no major updates since really like 2019, 2020. That's insane. And it really just shows how special Monad Studios really is and how they're truly capable of making some of the best games on the platform. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yes. Comment about how I'm glazing, Amagasto and Raguzer have me at gunpoint, blah blah blah. Just want to be a little bit real for today. Didn't have anything to rant about, and I feel like too much of Roblox is slop, so I want to give some praise where it's due. Face reveal Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Reaconteur Live. The Japan vlog is finally coming. Everyone's gonna be so excited, I know. You guys get to see me. Please don't call me ugly, I might cry. Or come, who knows. Anyway, buy a YouTube membership at any tier, even the lowest, to hear all my song covers. I drop one every month. And shout out to my members of tier 2 or higher: Philip, Akio Sugikuni, Zerksky, Fun Guns, Crypto, Broccoli, Delusional Mo, Dev, Suited Wendigo, mwah, Abrowski, Silos, Bunny Masher! He told me to scream his name. Freshy, Theos Banner, Corin, Captain Frost, and Drizzy Drake Fan. I love you all, have an amazing day, and goodbye.